Anyway, moving on from this topic, which is to another one, which is also very relevant, and it's about the Spain and Morocco situation that's going on right now. I listened to your good mate Daryl Cooper on Tucker Carlson's show about Spain, Morocco, and migration. And one thing that I was wondering is when you have tens of thousands of people suddenly arrive at a strategic border, many people naturally wonder whether there's more than spontaneous migration at play. And how do you distinguish between a genuine humanitarian crisis and a migration crisis that's being exploited for geopolitical leverage?
I don't know the details on this, but I agree with you that it's all very suspicious. I mean, I
Yeah,
saw even,
you
I
can't
don't
have
know if you're familiar with,
60,000 people jump and swim and enter a country without it being orchestrated, right?
yeah, and they're all fighting age male types. So you could
Exactly,
say
yes.
they're migrant laborers, but like let's see some real evidence that they're seeking jobs or a good new life in the promised land or
Hmm.
whatever, rather than um, just getting away, taking license and trying to get away with committing a crime and running home or whatever it is. I don't know. I don't know. But um, I don't know if you're familiar with this guy, Kenneth Roth. He at least used to be, I don't think he is anymore. He was the director of Human Rights Watch,
Okay.
right? So a very kind of center left, Soros backed, human rights organization type guy. And even he, to coin a phrase there, was saying, boy, um, this is punishment by somebody. And whether it's, I forgot what his one possibility he raised was, and then the second one was, or it's the Israelis punishing them for speaking out about the war. Um, and So that does not seem to be considered, on the fringes of speculation there. If a guy like Kenneth Roth is saying that himself, that, it sure looks like that may be what's behind this. But, it's also true that well, I don't know. I read somewhere that the president or the prime minister or whatever had made some very pro-immigration statements the day
You're
before, and
talking
the
about
court
the
had
Prime Minister of
ruled.
Spain, right? Pedro
Yeah, and
Sanchez.
also I saw where Thomas Massey tweeted that the U.S. Congress had just voted for a thing demanding that that piece of the little northern peninsula of Morocco there be returned or given to Morocco. I don't know if it ever belonged to them,
Yeah,
from Spain.
yeah.
So that obviously raises suspicions that, yeah, this was Israel punishing them. And of course, Morocco, signed the Abraham Accords. They got bribed by Donald Trump in his first term by recognizing their seizure of the northern half of Western Sahara as their bribe to get them to sign the Abraham Accords with Israel. So I don't know
Right.
exactly how close their governments are now, but,
Yeah.
and I don't know if this is really what was behind what happened there, but sure looks suspicious.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's definitely conversations to be had there, and we've covered a lot actually about Russia, Ukraine, the ongoing conflagration in the Middle East, and now also about Spain and Morocco. And as I promised your assistant, I won't hold you for long because you are very busy. But I have this question about your education initiatives, which is so after thousands of interviews and several books you've written and decades of studying foreign policy, you've now launched Scott Horton Academy, right? I mean, what made you feel as though this was the right time to build an educational platform?
Well, essentially the thing of it is, man, is everybody sees through the lies now. I mean, compared to Iraq War II, where so many people were caught up in that, where the Israeli role in it was, completely buried and all of that, like everything is just so much more transparent now. And as you can see, I mean, you're part of it, right? There's just this huge online anti-war community,
Right.
far bigger, far greater than it was back then. There's so
Mm.
many people with their own shows and all that.
Right.
And their own little, versions of antiwar.com where they're carrying on their own fights.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so so the idea behind the academy is essentially to provide a place where all the new guys can go to get caught up on all the stuff from way back. And
Hmm.
so that, because I mean, if there's if I have a comparative advantage in this thing, right? It's I'm able to recite all these facts. It's not my deep insight into exactly what's going on today. It's that I can tell you what happened before that obviously helped lead up to this and has a lot
Mm.
to do with what's going on now and all of
Right.
that.
Mm.
And so that's why I win in my debates too, is because when the war party lies, then I say that's not true because I remember when that happened and what was really going on there and whatever. So you know what I mean? Um, and so I just want to do that for the rest of the anti-war movement, right? To have a place where everyone can go to get all the way caught up on what's taken me so long to learn and all this effort to learn. And then let that be a foundation for everybody else going forward too. So that you can't fool me because I already know the actual truth about
Mm.
that thing. And so it's essentially, and also I've always been into radio
Right.
because even though I like reading, I know a lot of people don't read, and including like my people. Like a lot of people have real jobs out in the world and all that.
Right.
So it's my comparative advantage to do, radio or now, video on YouTube, this kind of thing, so that the people who don't have time to sit and read all this stuff can
Mm.
at least eavesdrop on me interviewing the guy that wrote the article that I thought was so important. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And hear
Right.
us talk about it and get it across that way. And so that's the same thing with the Academy too, is here it is in video form. We got a phone app, um, through Learnistic, and we're
Yeah.
working on building our own phone app now, but so you can take the thing
Oh,
with
that's
you
great.
wherever you go
Yeah.
and do deep dives on all this stuff. And it isn't just me; it's a bunch of my best guys too, doing deep dive courses on all this stuff. And I know it's extremely valuable. I've gotten so much out of the other courses, and then the first two courses, if this is what you see is what you get. It's basically me walking you through my books, Enough Already and Provoked,
Mm.
and essentially the spoken word version of how all this stuff turned
Right.
out. So yeah, if people are interested in that, it's scotthortonacademy.com. And if you use the promo code summertime, you'll save 20%.
I'm going to put the link in the description. And also, I mean, this is a great initiative. I'm sure people like myself, youngsters like myself, are going to be the beneficiaries of it. And talking about your good friends, I have this on my phone right now. The managing editor at the Libertarian Institute, I think his name is Keith Knight. So he's written
Mm-hmm.
a book, I believe, which is going to be published soon. And the book is Even Worse Perils. You tweeted about this yesterday. So is there anything about it you could enlighten us?
Sure. Well, first of all, so this will be, I think, if I have my chronology right here, this will be our 21st book at the Libertarian Institute. A few of
Hmm.
them are my own. You can see over my right shoulder are the books I wrote.
Yeah.
Over my left shoulder, these are the ones I've produced, published so far. Um, and so this one by Keith Knight is about World War II. And this is something that,
Hmm.
libertarians all kind of go through is, we learn about, how corrupt the terror wars were, about Vietnam and Korea and how Truman sent troops to Korea without a declaration of war and all the thing. And then learn about World War One and that damn Woodrow Wilson. God, he was bad on every single thing. And then especially this. And by intervening in World War One, he's really the one who caused World War Two. And like a lot of times it's even easier to get libertarians
Hmm.
to question the saintliness and heroism of Abraham Lincoln and his efforts in the Civil War to hold the nation together and all of that, um, compared to getting them to, which I'm a pretty severe revisionist on that issue myself, but compared to getting them to question World War II, because World War II, we're all raised on it. It's
Hmm.
really, I think, the foundational myth of the United States at this point, right? Washington and Jefferson and Ben Franklin and all them are long dead. Even Abraham Lincoln is so long ago. And in the American people's historical imagination, if
Hmm.
we got one at all, history began when America defeated evil in the Second World War and created the new American century and all of this in the aftermath of all of that. And so, um, in the First World War, we're fighting for this empire against that empire, and it's all very murky. They
Right.
call it the fight for democracy, but that ain't really right, is it? You know what I mean? But in the Second World War, even if we're allied with Stalin,
Hmm.
you can't really detract from the pure cartoonish supervillainy evil of Adolf Hitler and Emperor Hirohito and their empires at the time.
Hmm.
And after all, I mean, FDR deliberately provoked them, to coin a phrase, but they did attack us, and Germany did declare war on us and all of that. And they were, absolutely, brutal and monstrous powers in the way that they fought their war as well. And so in the aftermath of the war, there grew up sort of this great civic religion
Hmm.
about World War II as the triumph of good versus evil. It's a pure, black and white situation, up and down situation.
Right.
And the good guys won. And fascism was defeated and democracy thrived and survived throughout the world. And then also, yeah, there was world communism, but then they only got about a third of the world and we got 2/3. And then that all came to an end. And so it's kind of such a happy ending for all the people who believe in it all, and they teach it all in government school that way. And it really is sort of the foundational myth of the country at this point.
Hmm.
The problem is, right, is it's not just the foundational myth of the country, it's the foundational myth of the empire and America's hegemony over the planet. And so it's worthwhile to go back and ask, like, whether the whole thing was all it was cracked up to be. I
Right.
mean, I don't know if you've ever read the novel Catch-22 by Joseph Heller,
No, I
but
haven't.
yeah, I mean, everybody should. I mean, the movie's great, but you should read the book. It's a really fantastic book.
What is
And
it called again?
Catch-22.
Catch
And you'll
22.
hear people use the phrase Catch-22 about some kind of paradoxical type contradiction. I'll go
Yeah.
ahead and ruin it. The Catch-22 is that you can't go home. You can't get discharged out of the army and go home unless you're completely crazy. The only way to prove that you're completely crazy is to want to go out on bomber missions. And if you want to go out on bomber missions, then I'm sorry, I don't give a damn how crazy you are. We need you out there on bomber missions. And so no matter what, you're in a Catch-22. You got to keep going out to fight, right? And but anyway, that would, as the Brits say, that book will, as the Brits say, take the piss out of the entire mythology of World War II. Where this is the good war, is absolute, catastrophe. I mean, he's satirizing the thing. It's a novel, but still, like, you could see the truth in it all. What a government program the whole damn thing was, and all of the trading with the enemy, and all of the crazy stuff, and all the mindless sacrifice of GIs by their officers, in the most thoughtless kind of ways, and so much. And then, depending on your influences and whether you're lucky enough, you stumble upon A.J.P. Taylor and the origins of the Second World War, Pat Buchanan's book, Churchill, Hitler, and the Unnecessary War. And then there's Human Smoke by Nicholas Baker. And here's this new one coming out by Keith Knight. I'm sure there are others as well. This one by Keith Knight, Even Worse Perils.
Yes.
And essentially, I haven't actually read Keith's book yet, but I can sum up Pat Buchanan's book, which is that this absolutely did not have to happen. And as bad as Hitler was, he wanted his stolen pieces of Germany back in the East, including Danzig, and at Poland's expense for sure. But even the reason that he made his pact with Stalin was because he had to fight the West first, because the Western democracies, led by Britain and France, all insisted on fighting him first. So he had to destroy all the Western democracies before turning east and fighting the Soviets anyway.
Right.
When the whole thing, what Pat's saying is that, like, it's not even guaranteed he would have gone to war against the Soviet Union, but if he had, he'd have gone to war against the Soviet Union, but the Western democracies still would have been safe. And instead, it was Britain and France, and it wasn't really Churchill, it was Neville Chamberlain, who he's more known for giving in to Hitler at Munich over Czechoslovakia. But after he was humiliated on that, when Hitler went ahead and took the rest of Czechoslovakia anyway, which I think is how it was. Forgive me if I screwed that up. I'm pretty sure that's how it was. When that humiliation came, then it was Chamberlain who gave the war guarantee to Poland. I said, now the Polish colonels, who were fascists themselves, now they get to decide whether the British Empire goes to war against Germany or not. And they went ahead and said to the Germans, well, now that the British are on our side, screw you, Hitler, we're not negotiating anything with you. And so it gave them a huge moral hazard, helped cause the war in Poland. But then again, Hitler had then made a deal with Stalin that let's cut the thing in half and let's both invade it. And then, but that also meant the communists invading everything between Poland and the Baltic states and the Belarus and whatever, I guess south of there as well. Maybe they went into Moldova and Bulgaria and all that. Then I forget, Romania, maybe not. But anyway, they certainly went into. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I need a map of Europe, East Europe in my head. They took certainly the Baltics and half of Poland and more. I think they already controlled Belarus at that time. But anyway, and then so they ended up fighting anyway, right? Only 2 years later, after 2 years of destroying every Western democracy and also closing off any potential escape route for refugees from the East. So if it had been, it was, you could argue it was almost destiny, right? That the Nazis were going to fight the communists, right? This is matter and antimatter here. And, they share this frontier, and anti-communism was a huge part of the rise of the Nazi party in the first place and all that. Like, they were basically going to fight. But the way it played out, everybody there was stuck. Whereas if in the counterfactual, where Britain and France had stayed out of the thing, then people would have at least had somewhere to flee into the West. Potentially. You know what I mean? I'm not saying the Nazis would have necessarily opened up big humanitarian corridors for them or anything, but running through the wilderness, some of them at least would have had somewhere to escape to in a way that, was just clearly not the case in the war. Or even could have been, deported by the Germans to the West instead of to the East. You know what I mean? But anyway, so the point being that, especially when you read Buchanan, you get the idea that, like, oh man, it's such a huge, horrible war, and it happened before we were all born, and it's just the biggest thing in the world, and the good guys won the whole thing and everything, and it's a tough dang thing to question. And then, but once you do and look at it, like, did it really have to be this way? Then you go, oh no, it really did not have to be this way at all. And like, especially in Nicholas Baker's book, Human Smoke, it's just taken from newspaper clippings from various papers in England and wherever during that time. And it's just off ramp after off ramp after off ramp. Take this exit. Take this exit. Take this exit. It ain't too late to turn around. No. And they just keep going and going and going headlong into the worst thing that ever happened, right? Where they tripled the casualties of the First World War. If you can even imagine that, right? It's just absolute. And then, so people used to say that George W. Bush, he's the Winston Churchill of the 21st century. And then you read Buchanan and Baker, and then you go, oh, I get it. That's actually really right. Winston Churchill was the George W. Bush of the 20th century. And people put him up on this, pedestal of his stick-to-itiveness and his tough guyness and all that stuff, but just leave out the details that this guy was just an absolute walking disaster area. So much of what he did and insisted on just led to total catastrophe and ultimately to the death of his own empire.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I have another question following up, which is, when is the exact date of the book being published?
I'm sorry?
Do you know the exact date when the book is being published?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I don't. They're still tinkering with it.
Oh, all right. Okay. Yeah. I mean,
Sorry,
as I promised to you,
that probably looks funny.
yeah, as I promised earlier to your assistant, which is I'm not gonna be holding you for longer. I have one final question before we can conclude this conversation, and that is, looking back on your career, not just as an author or a broadcaster, but as someone who spent decades trying to understand war, diplomacy, and peace, what do you hope your legacy will be? And despite everything you've studied, what still gives you hope for the future?
Wow. That's funny. I don't think I really have a legacy, man. I'm just a pebble in a pond here, so trying to do my part for anti-war libertarianism and all of that. But I don't think there's really much there. If I'm trying to get people to like learn about me, like, oh, that Horton guy, then
Honestly,
the cliche is
I
that
have
all
to.
empires fall, right? That empire weakens America.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be this way. We should not be doing this stuff. We just don't have to, right? The imperative is nonsense. So just give it up. Like that's essentially my message. So if you say, oh, that Horton guy, then I want your friend to go, oh, the empire weakens America and ultimately it's all murder, suicide, and we should knock it off guy. And then you go, yeah, that guy. Like that's what I'm trying to like get across to people. Now, as far as like, what do I think is going to happen? Man, I don't know. You know, the wrongest people are in charge. And the more I do this, the more disappointed I am in hearing the discourse among those really in power, in the discussion where so much of what they're saying is just like, well, everybody knows this and everybody knows that. And they don't really know anything about it. There was a war powers resolution against Obama and Trump's war against Yemen in the first Trump years. And
Right.
Max Blumenthal, the journalist, went to the Capitol and
Hmm.
he's walking
Yeah.
up to all these congressmen and saying, how are you going to vote on the Yemen war powers resolution today? And they would all go, what's Yemen? Or they go, Yemen? We got a policy in Yemen? What's going on in Yemen? I don't know nothing about that. The one guy tells him, I'm a tax guy. And these are our congressmen. They didn't
Yeah.
even know that we had been helping Saudi and UAE and
Hmm.
AQAP tear that country apart for years. And
Right.
here some of their colleagues are trying to introduce a freaking war powers resolution to put an end to the thing.
Hmm.
And they've never heard of it. They don't know anything, dude. This is like your next door neighbor, Jim. He doesn't know a damn thing about it, but he's the congressman deciding whether to keep funding it or not.
Yeah.
And I read a quote from Lindsey Graham the other day where he said he got to Washington in the House of Representatives and he looked around for they because he thought surely someone is in charge here and tells us all what to do. And he looked around, there was no they.
Hmm.
And it took him a while to get used to the idea that he was they. He was going to have to corral these other people. Essentially, they're all just doing their own thing, making their own money, being corrupt. They don't even really have an agenda on
Right.
Capitol Hill. And so he's like, well, I guess it falls to me to whip them all into shape and say, come on, everybody, kill, kill, kill. This is what we're all about. Until then, it was just, they're all just sitting around doing nothing. They don't know anything. They don't care about anything. They're a
Hmm.
bunch of bums. And, I got in trouble on the Rogan show because I said that he asked me, he's like, I don't think they're having this conversation that we're having about where I was describing Iran's nuclear program and what they had and what they don't and where they are and whether we got to bomb them or not and whatever. And Rogan goes, I don't think they're really having this conversation in the White House.
Huh.
And I should have said, well, they kind of are because Tulsi Gabbard says the same thing. The actual intelligence agencies do say this,
Yeah.
but instead my frame of reference was more just Rubio and Vance and them.
Hmm.
I think Vance is probably the best on this, but I'd be willing to bet that no, Vance cannot explain this stuff as well as I can. And Rubio knows a lot of details about it, but he's horrible on it. And he's always been horrible on it. He's always assumed the very worst and looked at it from the most Israeli centric point of view. And so if he could explain it to Trump, he'd get it wrong.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. I don't trust Ratcliffe over at CIA. None of these people, like, tell me, Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, from all the reporting about the discussions in the lead up to the war,
Hmm.
it doesn't appear, even when Tucker Carlson went to talk to him, I'm not sure that Tucker took this tack with him, which is they're not making nukes, man. They have a latent deterrent. They're telling you, hey, don't make me do the crazy thing you don't want me to do by being too hard on me and trying to prevent it. Don't commit a self-fulfilling prophecy in this thing. That's what they're doing. It's a Mexican standoff. Let it be. Nobody is telling him that. So
Right.
if you listen to Trump talk about, I mean, he lies and he says ridiculous things like, oh, they're going to have a nuke in 2 weeks and stuff. He knows he's lying when he says that.
There's a
But
famous
when he
video.
says they were making nukes, that they
Right.
wanted nukes, that he's doing this to stop them from having nukes, I don't think he's lying about that. I think he's just too damn lazy to say, well, they've mastered the fuel cycle and they're saying, hey, buddy, don't make me do the thing. And
Right.
and you know what I mean? I don't think he really had a proper grasp of that. And I don't think
Right.
that anyone on his war cabinet explained it to him in that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally understand, and I concur with your last statement. And again, Mr. Orton, this has been such a fascinating conversation about a few different topics. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure our viewers will be left with a lot to reflect upon. I'm going to put out all the links in the description about your books and the academy, everything. I'm going to be coordinating with Rachel about this. So again, Mr. Orton, thank you so much for your time. I sincerely appreciate you joining me today. It was a fascinating conversation, and I'm grateful for your willingness to share your insights And I really hope we can do this sometime again in future as well. Maybe in person.
Okay, great. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you so much. There's been such a great conversation, especially for me because I've been following you since my school days. Actually, I was in high school, and to finally be able to have the conversation one on one, this has been a great experience for me.
That's
And you
cool.
have inspired many. Yeah, you have a legacy. You have a legacy because you've inspired people from different parts of the world, like myself, many youngsters. So yeah, I will be following you well from here on, and all the very best for your academy.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.